All right, everyone, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network. I'm going to go ahead and just stream this live, and yeah, feel free to comment and say whatever you got to say. I just want to remind you guys, first off, before we get into the topic of today's short video, to visit and bookmark theconsciousresistance.com so you can keep up with all of our latest content, including U.S. government scientist admits vaccine autism connection, NewsGuard, the latest attack on independent media, the latest Freethinker radio episodes, and of course, this interview right here with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, which is going to be the topic of today, the brief topic. Paul Craig Roberts breaks down what to expect in 2019, which I was very happy about. We talked with him, the former Assistant Treasury Secretary during the Reagan administration, who is also an author and a political commentator about 9/11, the American Matrix, U.S. economy, the Yellow Vest protest, war with China, and of course, Donald Trump's role in all of this. And this video has been getting some pretty good traction right now. It's got a few hundred comments and about 12,000 or so views. And interestingly enough, the interview went for an hour, and it was only supposed to be a 30-minute interview. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts was like, this interviews should only last 30 minutes. People won't listen past 30 minutes. But people listened to the whole hour, apparently, because they got all the way to the end of the conversation, where for the last couple minutes of the conversation, Dr. Roberts and I and my co-host Micah Jackson have some disagreements. Mainly, Dr. Roberts and I disagreed about Donald Trump, because that was my final question, is what is Donald Trump's role in all this? And for those of you who've listened to my channels before and heard me talk about this, then you understand that I don't buy the narrative that Donald Trump was somehow this outsider anti-establishment candidate that got into the election and, defied the deep state, and now they're scrambling to slow him down. That's not at all what I see as truth. And I base that on plenty of facts and on the evidence, not just on speculation that there are white hats inside or that QAnon is helping, Donald Trump take down the good guys or anything like that. And unfortunately, Dr. Roberts, Mr. Roberts here, he called me delusional, said I'm delusional to think otherwise. I'm totally wrong. He said things like, well, you made the mistake to think that the president's in charge. And I said, no, I don't think the president's in charge. He's a figurehead. But this is a common tactic that I've seen on both left and right is, you can criticize, like, let's say Trump does something or something good happens in the country, right? Okay, the economy is booming. Well, then the Trump supporters or the Obama supporters or the Bush supporters or just the statists in general will say, yeah, that my president did that. You don't give him any credit for the good things he does. And then whenever there's wars and there's bombs dropping and there's surveillance and there's still relationships with unsavory terrorist nations, oh, well, he's not in control of his own choices. He's surrounded by people who are making his decisions for him. How can you not see this? Like, he's not as smart. He thought he was going to be in control. It's always excuses. And I'm not attacking Dr. Roberts at all. I pretty much said this in the interview, and I would have said more if we had more time. And it's interesting, though, because I've noticed in the comments, most of the people who are attacking me or hating on this interview are saying that we interrupted him, we talked over him, and that, we should learn from an elder and from somebody who's got all this information. See, Derrick, stop and listen. Stop arguing. I wasn't arguing. Derrick Broze, you should have paid more attention to Robert's opinion. You sound like you pushed out your opinion over and over, over and over. Literally, the last minute of this interview is me talking about what I believe about Trump. We let him talk for an hour. Micah and I both asked questions, and we went back and forth. And I even let him say his comments about the need for a homogenous population and how whites are being wiped out and, multiculturalism and things that I disagree with. But I let that slide because I knew if I commented back, the interview would get derailed, and I wanted to continue, right? I saved it to the very end to ask him about Donald Trump, which I knew is where we were going to disagree, and I was fine with the disagreement because that's what adults do. We disagree, you have discussions, you have debates. Interviews are not going to always be friendly, and I'm okay with that. And, once we ended the recording that you guys hear, we talked to Dr. Roberts for a few minutes after that. There was no animosity, there was no hanging up, there wasn't, all these people who've come to the channel are the people I'm mainly speaking to. I don't see any names that are familiar to me from my typical audience. I see a lot of people who maybe saw the name Paul Craig Roberts and came in here and were like, they're just mad at me because I didn't, listen to him. Why have a guest? You know it all. Derrick, typical know-it-all attitude that plagues the anarcho movement. So tied to your philosophy that you can't see what Trump is attempting to do to the establishment. No, but whenever I bring up Dr. Roberts talks about Zionism, and I say, hey, Trump's continuing the Zionist relationship. Trump's increased the amount of bombs dropping. Trump's continuing the surveillance state. Trump's building a police state around the borders in the name of fighting illegal immigrants, which is also just a distraction that the deep state has created. Yes, I know they use immigration. Yes, I know they want to replace populations, and they do any kind of tactic they can. But the other thing, the most weak argument that I've possibly seen, and I saw it from Mr. Roberts, unfortunately, because I think he's more intelligent than this, was to say, have you seen the way the media's attacked him? They've attacked him more than anybody else in history. They've said that he's a Russian agent. They said that they would like to hang him or assassinate him. And why would they do that if he wasn't a threat? Well, how about the fact that we all know that 5 corporations control the media, and half of them it's Zionist-controlled media, and a lot it's neoconservative media. The people that Trump claims to be fighting are in control of the media, right? So yes, they can use that media to attack him, right? Or they could use their media to create a narrative that this guy is an outsider and none of us like him and he's a bad guy. You should all oppose him. Even though we know Donald Trump was a Democrat for most of his life and rubbed elbows with the Democratic elite, and he doesn't care about party affiliation. He's a businessman that the New World Order, the deep state, the powers that wish they were, brought in to further the plan. And as I was telling Dr. Roberts, in a couple of years, if Trump doesn't get replaced in 2020, in 2024, they're going to bring in some young Democrat to sweep the other side and get them all frenzied and think that they're going to save them from everything Donald Trump did. And it'll go back and forth. I don't understand how a man of this intelligence and of this age can still believe that elections are real. And when I challenged him on that and said, you really believe elections are real? His response was, well, this election was real. So he's willing to admit that the other elections might not have been so real. But for some reason, he thinks, despite this control that all of you guys out there say, the deep state has control of everything. The deep state has control of the media. The deep state has control of the elections. And then you somehow think that this guy got in and is doing good things. The other thing I want to address is when I say this, I've noticed in some of the comments, people think, well, I guess this guy's just a defeatist. There's no good out there, right? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying your precious president isn't coming to save the day. So there are a lot of good things happening. There are a lot of people taking care of their communities right now while the government shut down. There are private individuals who are doing great work out there. There are people who are exiting from the system, who are opting out, who are using agorism and all kinds of different things, right? Great solutions to get out of the mainstream and to build something better. But you're not going to hear about them on freaking CNN. And unfortunately, you're not even going to hear about them from Paul Craig Roberts because he's out of touch with it. And I don't mean that as an attack. We do plan to do another interview with him. There's a lot of people on here who are like, well, he shouldn't have gave an interview to you babies. And, these hosts have no idea. The host destroyed the whole conversation. Yes, you did. PCR is right and you were wrong. You didn't understand him and his point because you are so wrong. You think you know what's going on, but you don't. We'll continue to see how things play out, right? I understand that Trump is a part of the game and, it'll be proven more and more as time goes on. So I'm thankful for those in the comments who do see that and who understand that Trump is not any different. And other than that, I thought this was a really great interview. Other than a couple of disagreements, we talked for an hour. We covered a lot of ground, and it seems that the vast majority of people enjoyed the interview. There's 33 thumbs down, and there's quite a few of comments saying that I talked over him at the end or things like that. But other than that, I'm thankful to all of you who actually watched this and heard. Even if you disagree with my assessment on Trump, I appreciate that. And the last thing I want to say is, look, guys, I wrote an article about this December 2016, 2 years ago, right after Trump got elected and before he came into office. The establishment's plan to divide Donald Trump, fake news, and Russia. And it was talking about how they were going to use Donald Trump's presidency to come in and allow him to be the great divider. Anything he says, the media obsesses about, and they go on and talk about it all day. They say, hey, look, Donald Trump tweeted this. Donald Trump talked about this. And we know, those in the independent media know that the mainstream media was dying and the independent media was growing. They needed Donald Trump to grow their ratings. And the head of CVS has already said this. Some of you have seen that quote out there where he said, this is great for us. We're making a lot of money. It might not be great for America, but Donald Trump's great for us, right? So Donald Trump, the reality TV star, is helping save the mainstream media by giving them something to obsess about. And he's playing the role of dividing the people. So his people think that he is this anti-establishment candidate who's fighting for the real people. And the other side thinks he's just this fascist who is, saying horrible things about women and he's racist and things like that. And it's creating more and more division. Meanwhile, they use the fake news to say that Trump is a Russian propagandist. And the left gets to use that as their fodder for why he should be taken down. And the right gets to further entrench themselves in their views and say, see, they're using propaganda to attack our candidate who's fighting the deep state. This is why we should support him. So it's entrenching people further into their biases, further into their views, as well as using the fake news meme to attack the truly independent media who would expose these things, who are now taken off the internet. Most of the independent media I know, Anti-Media, Free Thought Project, Truth in Media, The Mind Unleashed, Mint Press News, all of the real alternative media know that Trump is a pawn and that Trump is a part of this game, right? And then also, as far as Russia, it gets to bring back a lot of the Russian hysteria and the Cold War kind of, feel. So my conclusion here is that by spreading the fake news meme, the elitists behind the American power centers are able to attack growing independent media icons by painting them as propagators of false Russian propaganda. The media is also using this fake news meme and Russian propaganda to accuse Trump of being an illegitimate president, further playing into the Trump is an outsider narrative. All of this is being done with the goal of keeping the domestic front as divided as possible while selling the brainwashed masses into another war. Coincidentally, all this nonsense is taking place while the corporate media spread lies about Syria and Russia. Trump is the great divider, playing his role to keep the people fighting while the parasite classes take down independent media and sell the American public into a proxy war with Russia. Will you allow the game of deceit and misdirection to lead you down a path of ignorance, jingoism, and death? That's up to you guys. That's all I was trying to say, and I want to reiterate that I consider Paul Craig Roberts to be a very intelligent man. At the same time, though, you guys need to stop idolizing him and stop idolizing Trump. Just because the man served in government 30 years ago and he has insight and he's intelligent doesn't mean that he's infallible. It doesn't mean that he knows more than me or that I'm wet behind the ears. Time will tell which one of us is right. But my bigger point here is stop worshiping people. You guys are obsessed with people and wanting to idolize them, and anybody who challenges them, be that Obama, Trump, Sanders, PCR, Alex Jones, or anybody that you put on a pedestal, you freak out and you can't handle it. Grow up, be mature, be adults, learn to stop idolizing people, stop acting like children. To my real audience and to those who know what's going on, I support you. I'm thankful for your support. And anybody out there, I just want to make it clear, if you ever comment on anything and say, oh, if you act like this again, I'm unsubscribing, or if I listen to another interview and this host talks over, you know what? Leave. I'm saying that with compassion in my heart and love in my heart for you. Leave. You are not who I'm looking for. If you get offended, if you get triggered easily, leave. I don't need your subscriber. I don't need your thumbs up. I don't need your Patreon money. You're not hurting me. You're not offending me. I don't want it. If you can't handle talking like a real adult and having a conversation and not idolizing people and taking personal responsibility, then we're not fighting the same fight. And maybe down the line we'll come together and we'll work together. But in the meantime, stop acting like a child. That's all, guys. Just a quick Monday check-in about this interview to kind of analyze some thoughts on the Paul Craig Roberts interview. If you haven't watched the interview, do check it out. And if you do think I was talking over him, but you're still a fan and a supporter of mine, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. I see it as a conversation. I see it as us going back and forth, and that's how conversations happen sometimes. Also, we were talking on Skype, so it might have sounded like we were talking over each other more than it actually was because of the delay. But that's all I got to say for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this valuable. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.